Isabella once had a father who was her source of hope. He worked tirelessly day and night, so she could pursue her dreams. But when he passed away, her world shattered. She lost her home, her stability, everything. Alone on the streets, struggling to survive, she never imagined that one decision would alter her life forever. What choice caught the attention of a cold, distant billionaire? And what happened afterward that left her trembling in disbelief? This is the unforgettable story of Isabella and the man whose life she would unexpectedly change. In the bustling city of Lagos, where survival was a daily battle, lived a young woman named Isabella Thomas. She wasn't born into comfort or privilege. Her life began in hardship. Her mother died moments after her birth, leaving her father, Peter Thomas, to raise her alone. He worked as a market laborer, carrying heavy sacks of rice, crates of onions, and cartons of tomatoes across the bustling Lagos mainland, just to put food on the table and send his only daughter to school. Peter didn't have much, but he had dreams for Isabella. Every morning, wearing his worn-out shirt and dusty slippers, he would say, "Your education is my pride. I may be poor, but you, my daughter, will achieve greatness." They lived in a single-room apartment with a leaking roof, but inside those walls were values richer than gold. Her father taught her honesty, dignity, and the belief that no hardship lasted forever. Isabella adored her father and studied diligently, staying out of trouble. By the age of 16, she was known as the street professor in her neighborhood. She read by candlelight and borrowed light from neighbors' generators, sitting outside to study while others watched movies. She tutored her classmates for free and helped her father record daily earnings in a small logbook. Numbers fascinated her. Her dedication paid off when she gained admission to the prestigious University of Lagos to study accounting. The day her acceptance letter arrived, her father wept with pride. He began working double, sometimes triple shifts, hauling heavier loads until his knees ached, borrowing small amounts from market women just to pay her fees. Isabella studied even harder at the university to honor his sacrifices. But life rarely goes as planned. During her third year, just after her final exam for the semester, she noticed several men in gray suits waiting outside the hall. Her heart pounded. Had she done something wrong? Instead, they delivered devastating news. Her father had fallen from a truck while unloading rice at the market, sustaining a severe head injury. The first hospital demanded a deposit they couldn't afford, so he was taken elsewhere. Despite treatment, he passed away the next morning, leaving Isabella with hospital debts. Her world fell apart. With no mother, relatives, or savings, she sold their few belongings to settle the bills and give him a proper burial. Afterward, she had no one to help with her education or living expenses. Determined to survive, she juggled classes with odd jobs, tutoring children, distributing CVs at banks and supermarkets, washing clothes, and taking any work she could find. But Lagos was unkind to those without connections. Many companies refused to hire a student, while others offered work only in exchange for compromising her dignity, which she firmly rejected. When even these small earnings weren't enough, she sold her clothes and personal items to afford meals and school fees. Still, life grew harsher. The breaking point came one evening after a tutoring session. She returned to find her door secured with a rusted padlock. Neighbors told her the landlord had come earlier, evicting her for overdue rent. With nothing but a few clothes and a worn mat, she pleaded for mercy, but the landlord refused. That night, she slept on a bench outside a bakery, the smell of fresh bread intensifying her hunger the next morning. She thought of her father and the promise she'd made, to finish school, secure a good job, and ensure he never worked again. But now she could barely feed herself. In her fourth year, she dropped out of school. With nowhere to go, she found a quiet spot beneath a large concrete bridge in a remote part of the city and made it her home. The nights were bitterly cold, and mosquitoes gave her no rest, but she refused to give in to despair. Wrapping herself in a thin cloth and using her small bag of clothes as a pillow, she remembered her father's words, "As long as you have two hands and hope in your heart, you can survive." Before dawn each day, Isabella washed her face with sachet water and began crafting bracelets from beads and keychains from colorful plastic scraps. She arranged them neatly on a tray near a busy roadside, hoping for customers. She sold them for as little as 200 to 300 naira, barely enough for one meal. Many people walked past without a glance, some stared, others laughed, but she kept smiling. On good days, she earned 500 naira. On bad days, nothing. She ate when she could, drank rainwater when necessary, but never begged. No matter how hard life pressed against her, she refused to surrender her hope. She kept working every single day, holding on to the hope that tomorrow would be better than today. Then, one fateful evening, on her way back to the bridge she called home, Isabella passed a roadside petrol station. Something caught her eye on the ground. At first, she hesitated, but curiosity pushed her closer. It was a leather wallet, real expensive leather, not the flimsy imitation she'd seen before. When she opened it, her breath caught. Inside were crisp bundles of 1,000 naira notes, neatly arranged, more money than she had ever seen in her life. Her hands shook, her heart raced, and for a moment the world around her seemed to fade. Along with the cash, there were several ATM cards and an ID card with a name engraved in silver. Daniel Grant, CEO of Grant Tech Holdings. Temptation flooded her mind. She could eat well for weeks, buy clothes, even rent a small room and finally leave the bridge behind. Surely, a man of his wealth wouldn't miss it. Her thoughts whispered, "Take it, Isabella. No one saw you. No one will know." But then, clear as day, she heard her father's voice. "There is no shortcut to success. Any money you didn't earn is not yours." She remembered the time he scolded her for bringing home a pencil she had found at school. Clutching the wallet tightly, she stood in the middle of the street, torn between need and principle. In the end, she took it with her, but didn't touch a single note, despite her empty stomach. By morning, her decision was made. She would return it. The address on the ID was far, but she started walking at dawn, determined. Hours later, she stood before a towering skyscraper with Grant Tech headquarters displayed boldly. Knocking softly at the gate, she was met by a security guard who looked her over with disdain. "I don't have money for beggars today," he said coldly. The words stung, but she stayed calm. "I believe this belongs to the owner of this company," she replied, holding up the wallet. Another guard joined him, and both laughed. "You expect us to believe someone like you didn't spend the money?" one sneered. Isabella said nothing, standing firm. A young intern named Steve noticed the commotion and came over. Listening to her speak in fluent English, he took the wallet, opened it and froze at the sight of the cash. Without hesitation, he called Linda, Daniel Grant's personal assistant. Linda arrived within minutes, listened to Steve's account, and was stunned by Isabella's honesty. She thanked her warmly, but when Isabella turned to leave, Linda insisted she give the wallet directly to Daniel himself. Reluctantly, Isabella agreed. As they walked inside, the guards watched her with a mix of pity and mockery, whispering how foolish she was. Other employees eyed her worn clothes and dusty slippers with open disdain, but she ignored them, following Linda into the elevator. Daniel Grant sat in his office, reviewing a contract when Linda knocked. Without looking up, he said, "Come in, and this had better be important." Linda stepped forward. "Sir, someone found your wallet last night. She says it's yours." Daniel turned, expecting some scam, but was met instead by a thin young woman in tattered clothing. Isabella stepped forward, placed the wallet on his desk, and said quietly, "I believe this belongs to you." He studied her face, then checked the contents. Inside a hidden compartment, he found an old photograph of a man and a young boy. His shoulders eased, and he pressed a brief kiss to the photo before placing it back. For a long moment, he was silent. Then, reaching into his drawer, he pulled out a thick bundle of cash and slid it across the table. "Take this," he said curtly. "You can go now." But Isabella shook her head. "No, thank you. I didn't return it for money. I just didn't want to take what wasn't mine." Daniel's brows drew together. "You returned a wallet with more than most people make in a month. Take it and leave," he said, his voice sharp. But Isabella remained calm. "Not everyone wants something from you." Her tone was steady, her eyes unshaken. Her words unsettled him. He had heard every kind of flattery, every desperate plea, but this felt different, real. She looked at him without awe, without greed, in a way no one had since his parents died. As she turned to go, he stood abruptly. "Wait, please," he said, the words sounding foreign even to him. Linda, standing by the door, looked almost startled to hear it from his mouth. "What is your name?" he asked. She paused. "Isabella. And a simple thank you would have been better than throwing money at me." She reached for the door, but before she could step out, Daniel hurried after her. "Please, wait," he said again, this time his voice softer, more thoughtful, slipped a hand into the inside pocket of his suit jacket, pulled out one of his personal business cards, and held it out to her. At least take this. If you change your mind, or if you ever need anything, call this number or come to this address and ask for me directly. Thank you for returning my wallet. She hesitated, her gaze fixed on the card. For a moment, she studied it as though weighing more than just the offer in her hand. Finally, she took it, though her eyes spoke a quiet truth. I am not here for your pity. Thank you for the card, she said simply before turning away, leaving Daniel in a rare state of silence. As soon as she was gone, he called the HR department and dismissed his laundryman, the one responsible for cleaning the clothes where his wallet should have been. But that day was unkind to Isabella. By the time she returned to her spot on the roadside to sell her trinkets, the heat was merciless and the air thick with exhaust. Few people stopped, and even fewer bought anything. A young child accidentally bumped into her tray, scattering her bracelets across the road. Passers-by kicked them aside, some crushing them underfoot, others lost beneath the wheels of cars. Her heart ached. She hadn't eaten all day, and now only a handful of bracelets remained. By evening, her hunger had sharpened into painful cramps. The small savings she had couldn't buy enough bread, let alone the thread she needed to make more bracelets. Under the bridge that night, she sat alone, her hands trembling from exhaustion. Searching through her small bag in the faint hope of finding forgotten coins, her fingers brushed against the business card Daniel had given her earlier. She took it out, staring at the silver-embossed letters and the number beneath them. She didn't want to be another person begging the rich for handouts, but she was tired. The next morning, she chose the cleanest clothes she had, washed her face, tied back her hair, and walked to Grant Tech. At the gate, the guards recognized the card and let her through without a word. Inside, Steve, the intern who had helped her before, spotted her and led her to Linda, Daniel's PA. You came back, Linda said warmly before leading her to Daniel's office. He was at his computer when they entered. The lady who returned your wallet yesterday is here to see you, Linda announced. Daniel didn't look up. She came back, huh? Have a seat. When he finished his work, he opened a drawer, pulled out 2 bundles of crisp Naira notes, and slid them across the desk. You can have this. You impressed me yesterday, but I'm not surprised you returned. Everyone does. His tone was cool, almost dismissive. Isabella pushed the money back toward him. I didn't come for the money. If there's a job, any job, I'll take it. He studied her. Her voice was calm, her blouse worn, dirt visible beneath her nails, yet there was a quiet dignity in her manner. We have openings for janitorial staff, he said. That's fine. I'll take it, she replied, a soft smile touching her lips. Surprised, he asked why she'd refused so much money for the lowest-paying position in the company. I said I wanted work, not charity. When can I start? Tomorrow. HR will process you. You'll get a uniform and shoes, he told her. She thanked him and left. Alone, Daniel found himself unsettled by the fact that a woman with nothing could carry herself like someone who had everything. Daniel Grant, CEO and founder of Grant Tech Holdings, was a billionaire with offices across Africa, Dubai, and London. He owned estates, private jets, and cars most people couldn't pronounce. He lacked nothing except warmth. Cold, sharp, and famously arrogant, he was feared by employees. A single mistake could cost someone their job, and his office felt more like a military camp than a workplace. Even Linda, loyal and capable, spoke to him only when absolutely necessary. No one had ever spoken to him the way Isabella had. The next morning, Isabella wore her new uniform, faded blue with rubber-soled shoes, and her laminated ID, janitor staff, Isabella. She held it for a moment, remembering the dreams she once had of carrying a card that read financial analyst or head of accounts. But life had been cruel. Her father's death had left her struggling for survival. She pushed the thought aside and got to work. She cleaned with care, moving through offices, windows, and corridors like it mattered. In the locker room, she overheard 2 staff gossiping. She must know someone important. How else would she get hired without interviews? Does she even have a secondary school certificate? She ignored them, buttoned her shirt, tied her scarf, and left. The other janitors whispered too, saying she made them look bad, but Isabella didn't respond. She greeted everyone politely, even when they didn't reply, and helped others without expecting thanks. From his office, Daniel watched her on the CCTV. She worked like she was solving a puzzle, never shying away from dirt, never cutting corners. His curiosity grew, and he asked Linda to gather information about her. In the building, she wasn't liked at first. People mocked her clothes, called her cleaner girl, but she never let it touch her spirit. The only one kind to her was Steve. Gradually, small acts began to shift perceptions. One morning, Mama Jane, the oldest cleaner, arrived late and exhausted. Her daughter had lost a baby the night before. She forgot her uniform and rushed home to get it. While she was gone, Isabella quietly cleaned her entire section without saying a word. When Mama Jane returned to find the work done, she asked who had helped. Upon learning it was Isabella, she said nothing, but her eyes softened. Later, during Isabella's break, Mama Jane sat beside her, handed her a sachet of cold water and a warm meat pie wrapped in newspaper. "You remind me of my daughter. You're a good girl," she murmured. That meat pie was Isabella's first meal of the day. From then on, her colleagues began treating her differently. The janitor team started calling her Sister Bella. The building, once tense and joyless, slowly warmed. Laughter replaced silence in the halls, and the air felt lighter. Daniel noticed the change. When he walked past, people stayed stiff and cautious. But when Isabella passed, faces lit up. One afternoon, he entered the staff canteen unannounced. The room froze. Conversations stopped, and people straightened nervously. Everyone except Isabella. She was at the water dispenser, handing a cup to a security guard. When their eyes met, hers held no fear. He turned and walked away, feeling something he hadn't felt in years, truly seen. Not as a billionaire or a CEO, but as a man. He couldn't understand how someone with nothing could touch so many lives so deeply. Isabella was just a cleaner, the lowest role in the company, yet her influence was undeniable. One rainy evening, long after most employees had left, Daniel was preparing to go home when he overheard Isabella talking with a few staff members, sharing roasted groundnuts and heartfelt laughter. He didn't join them. Instead, he remained hidden in the shadows, listening as she spoke about her father, the man she loved most, who had died unexpectedly while she was still in university. She told them how she fought to stay in school but eventually dropped out in her 4th year when life became too difficult. She shared her story with warmth, smiling and even laughing between memories. Something inside Daniel stirred, an unfamiliar feeling he couldn't name. Later that night, he opened his email and found a file Linda had compiled about Isabella. Her full name stared back at him. Isabella Thomas. The document detailed her life, her late parents, and her current reality. It broke his heart to read that she slept under a bridge a few kilometers away, yet was always punctual and dedicated at work. He was struck by her pride, honesty, and refusal to exploit his wealth despite her hardships. Most people in such poverty would take shortcuts to survive, but not Isabella. 2 months into her job, she had saved enough to rent a small apartment near the office. One morning, she was assigned to clean an office in the top executive wing, a place reserved for the company's most trusted and experienced janitors. Excited, she rode the elevator up with her cleaning cart, breathing in the air that seemed to carry the scent of success. She entered the office of Financial Officer Martins, carefully tidying the shelves, frames, and floors. As she reached to clean the window, her eyes fell on a half-open file on the desk. She hadn't intended to pry, but the bold title caught her attention. Q3 Financial Report, Internal Review. It reminded her of her university days, dreaming of becoming a financial analyst. Her professor had once taught her how to analyze such reports for patterns, errors, and red flags. Driven by curiosity and a quiet longing to feel that passion again, she opened the file slightly and scanned the pages. At first, everything appeared normal. Rows of numbers, transaction logs, and payment records. But then she spotted inconsistencies. Identical invoices with the same dates, amounts, and vendors. Flipping through the pages, she found more repeated entries. This wasn't carelessness. It was too precise. Her heart pounded. Someone was stealing from the company. Possibly from Daniel himself. She could ignore it and leave, or she could risk everything to do what was right. Taking a steady breath, she returned the papers exactly as she had found them, finished her cleaning, and quietly left. But the thought gnawed at her all day. By closing time, her mind was made up. She approached the executive assistant's desk and said politely, "I think I found something important, and I'd like to speak with Mr. Daniel Grant." The assistant, a tall woman in glasses, eyed her janitorial uniform skeptically. What's so important that you need to speak to him directly? I think there's something wrong with one of the finance reports, Isabella replied firmly. When asked who she was, she answered, I'm a cleaner, but I studied accounting. I believe someone may be stealing from the company. Without further questions, the assistant called Daniel. 10 minutes later, Isabella stood in his office once again, but this time, his expression was different. Curious. What report? He asked quietly. Isabella named the file, described the duplicated invoices, and explained the suspicious payments with clarity and precision. She didn't overstate or embellish. She simply told the truth. When she finished, silence filled the room. Daniel picked up the intercom. Call Mr. Martins from the finance department now, he said with urgency. 20 minutes later, Martins walked in, smiling confidently. Daniel slid the report toward him. Please explain these figures, he said evenly. Martins flipped through the pages, his confidence faltering as he stuttered excuses about clerical errors, but his explanations crumbled. Daniel stood, his voice calm but edged with disappointment. You've been here 6 years. Do you think I can't recognize a thief? Martins had no reply. Security escorted him out, his box of belongings in hand, under the heavy silence of shame. Daniel watched from his glass office, saying nothing for a while. Isabella sat quietly, neither proud nor boastful. She felt she had only done her duty. Eventually Daniel asked, Did you study accounting? She nodded, but when she began to explain, he raised his hand to stop her. He already knew her story. Looking at her with respect, he said, There's an opening for a finance trainee position. You should apply. You've proven honesty, and now you've proven skill. I'll be rooting for you. For the first time, he saw her smile, and it lit up her face. She thanked him and left with a quiet grin. By the next day, news of the cleaner who uncovered fraud had spread through the company. Some admired her intelligence. Others doubted her chances in the corporate world. When HR announced the finance trainee position was open to everyone, murmurs filled the building. Many scoffed, saying connections would decide the outcome. But Isabella applied. She studied late into the night, arrived for the interview in her cleanest clothes, and answered each question with steady confidence and honesty. When the results came in, she ranked first, not through pity, luck, or influence, but through her own merit. Isabella's heart swelled when she saw her name at the very top of the list. A week later, she walked into the finance department, her new desk waiting for her. She wore a neatly tailored suit and the same gentle smile she'd always carried. Her nameplate read simply, Isabella Thomas, finance trainee. The company had also provided her with her own apartment. As she moved through the room, people turned to look. This time, the whispers were different. There were smiles, compliments, even claps from a few colleagues. Yet her promotion didn't change her nature. She still spoke kindly to everyone and treated all staff with the same warmth. Her dream had come true, though she wished her father were alive to see it. Far above, Daniel Grant watched her on the CCTV feed. He no longer saw her as a poor girl mopping floors. He saw the young woman who once returned his lost wallet when she could have kept it. The one who exposed fraud no one else had noticed. The one who worked without seeking praise and rose to success without stepping on anyone. Something inside him softened. Daniel began to change. He no longer barked orders at interns or raised his voice at staff. He made an effort to talk to people, ask about their families, and even share coffee with security guards. People noticed. Whispers began again, the boss is changing. It started when that girl came. In truth, Daniel had developed a quiet affection for Isabella. They crossed paths often at meetings and seminars. She never tried to impress him, never sought his attention, and rarely even looked him in the eye. So different from others who chased his wealth. One evening, as Daniel was leaving the office, he passed the conference room and heard a familiar voice. Peeking inside, he saw Isabella alone at the whiteboard, rehearsing for a presentation. She gestured as she spoke, rewriting notes, completely unaware of him. He watched for a moment, then did something he hadn't done in years. He clapped. Startled, she spun around. Sir. I didn't know you were there, she stammered. He stepped closer, smiling. You're good. I'm impressed. She blushed, murmuring, "I'm just trying." "No," he said gently. "You're becoming." He sat in one of the chairs, his voice softening. "I used to think everyone wanted something from me. Money, power, connections. But when you returned my wallet that day and refused my money, I realized there are still people whose dignity can't be bought." Her eyes filled with tears as memories of her father and the nights under the bridge came flooding back. "I just wanted a chance," she whispered. "You didn't just take a chance," he told her. "You created one." From that day, a quiet friendship grew between them. They spoke outside work hours. She asked him questions no one else dared to, and one day she surprised him with a simple but piercing question. "With all your power and wealth, are you happy?" He didn't answer, but his silence told her enough. One morning, he called her into his office. She thought it was for work, but instead he handed her an envelope. "What's this?" she asked, worried. With a smile, he replied, "Your transfer letter. You're now a junior financial analyst, permanent, full-time, with full benefits." Before she could speak, he reached into a drawer and pulled out a box containing a car key. "The company is also giving you a car and a driver, if you want one." She stepped back, her voice trembling. "No, I can't. I didn't do anything to deserve this." "You did everything, Isabella," Daniel said quietly. "You've changed me, changed this company, and changed how I see the world. It's all because of you." When she left his office, the hallway erupted with applause. Some hugged her, some whispered, "Well done," others simply watched in admiration. As the weeks passed, they spent more time together. She learned why he had been so cold. He hadn't been born wealthy. His father had chased money relentlessly, and his mother had left when Daniel was 10 because his father wasn't rich. When success finally came, old acquaintances, estranged relatives, and even his mother returned, suddenly eager to be part of his life. Women who had ignored him before now wanted his attention. He had built walls to protect himself, becoming ruthless and detached. But with Isabella, those walls began to crumble. Not all at once, but slowly, in the way he asked about her day, in the way she corrected his reports without fear, in their quiet laughter, and in the shared talks about life, pain, and hope. 4 months later, when they were alone, Daniel handed her another box. Expecting one of his usual gifts, she opened it to find a diamond ring. Before she could look up, he was already on one knee. "I don't know how this happened," he began. "I used to believe love was for people who needed saving. But now I know it's for people who make each other whole. Please, marry me. Isabella. Please be my wife." Tears blurred her vision. She had never expected this, but she knew she loved him too. She said yes. The wedding was small, beautiful, and private, just as she wanted. No media, no business partners, only staff and true friends. They stood together at the altar, not as CEO and cleaner, but as two souls who had found each other. That was how the girl the world had forgotten became the woman a billionaire couldn't live without. Not for her beauty or influence, but for her honesty and resilience. Because sometimes the world will judge you by where you sleep or what you wear, but real worth is found in how you rise when life tries to bury you. Isabella didn't just return a wallet. She returned integrity to a broken system, and proved that anyone can reach the top if they fight and refuse to give up.